Part 1. The Pattern No One Noticed. The Galactic Historical Institute on Vashtar. Prime was a quiet place where ancient records were stored and studied. This large building, located on a peaceful planet, was filled with advanced machines and alien scholars who dedicated their lives to researching the past. One of those scholars was Drerick, a reptilian alien with green scales and sharp black eyes. He was very intelligent and curious. His job was to study the fall of past empires, huge civilizations that once ruled parts of the galaxy but no longer existed. One day, Drerick was working late, scanning through digital records. He was trying to understand why so many powerful empires had vanished. Some had disappeared thousands of years ago, others only recently. There were over 200 entries in the database. He started to notice something strange. In almost every case, every empire that had gone extinct there was one shared detail, somewhere in their history. They had interacted with a species called humans. Sometimes the records used other names, Terrans, Salarogan, bipeds, or even the cold scientific term species 92A. But they all pointed to the same species, humans. From the planet Earth, Dr. Reck leaned in closer. His claws tapped on the glowing screen as he searched deeper. The first file he opened was about the Yulzan hegemony, a powerful empire that had once controlled entire star systems. The Yulzan had used humans as slaves, forcing them to mine rare minerals. A few decades after that, the entire Yulzan civilization collapsed in less than a year. Officially, it was blamed on internal conflict. Next, he looked into the Feralith Compact, a technologically advanced group that had placed solar siphons around Earth's sun to steal its energy. The humans had protested, but the Feralith ignored them. 30 years later, their central star mysteriously went supernovous, something scientists still couldn't explain. Feralith were gone. Then came the Raxan Dominion. Arrogant and cruel, they had bombed a human colony during a border dispute. There was no full-scale war, just silence. Then, within a few decades, the Raxans simply disappeared. All that remained were ruins and rumors. Dr. Reck was stunned. It couldn't be a coincidence. He opened dozens more files. Empire after empire, species after species. Each had wronged humanity in some way: enslavement, attacks, theft, cruelty, and each one had eventually vanished from the galaxy. He sat back in his chair, breathing heavily. His mind was racing. What kind of species was this? Humans didn't seem that powerful. In fact, Earth was often called a backwater world, meaning it wasn't seen as important. Their ships weren't the most advanced. Their planets weren't the richest. Yet somehow, they survived. And more importantly, their enemies knew this discovery was important. So, he decided to go deeper. He typed into the console, "Human retaliation protocols declassified." That meant he was trying to find old secret records of how humans reacted when they were attacked or betrayed. The computer denied his request. Access denied. Clearance level restricted. He tried again, but the result was the same. Drerick's claws trembled slightly. If the Council had locked those records, it meant something dangerous was inside, something the galaxy wasn't supposed to see. He now understood that this wasn't just a pattern. It was a warning. There was something about humans that didn't fit with the rest of the galaxy. They didn't act the way other species did. Most civilizations responded to an attack with an immediate war or formal retaliation. But humans didn't. They waited. They said nothing. Then quietly and without warning, their enemies vanished. It wasn't open warfare. It was something else, something colder, something smarter. Like a trap closing long after the victim had forgotten they stepped into it. Dr. Rack realized the terrifying truth. Humanity didn't forgive. They remembered. And when the time was right, they made sure their enemies were never a threat again. He looked back at the list of fallen empires. It stretched across the screen names that once inspired fear. Now, nothing but ghosts. The Feralith, the Raxan, the Yulzan, the Creel, the Vrogak Empire. all gone, and all had, at some point, angered or hurt humanity. A chill passed through Drarix. Scales! He quickly saved his research and locked his terminal. Wanted to publish his findings, but he hesitated. If this was true, then humanity might see his work as a threat. What if humans didn't want this information public? What if this was why no one had seen the pattern before? Maybe others had noticed. Maybe they had disappeared too. Still, someone had to know. Someone had to sound the alarm. Dr. Rier opened a new file and began to write his report. He titled it, Every Extinct Empire Had One Thing in Common. They pissed off humanity. Drarix didn't sleep that night. Kept thinking about Earth. About the quiet way they responded to aggression. About how no one ever suspected them. He thought about how the galaxy kept ignoring humans, treating them like they were weak or unimportant. And how every time someone made that mistake, they didn't live to make it twice. Maybe humanity wasn't feared because they were loud or powerful. Maybe they were feared because they never needed to raise their voice. Because when humans decided to act, they didn't just fight you, they erased you. Forever. End of Part 1. Part 2. The warnings that went unheeded after Drarix released. His research about fallen empires and their connection to humanity, many people across the galaxy began to talk. Some were curious, some were nervous, but most of the galaxy laughed. The council scholars called it a strange coincidence. Military leaders said humans aren't powerful enough to destroy whole empires. Diplomats scoffed and rolled their eyes. To them, Earth was just another minor planet, a race that had come late to space travel. Their fleets weren't the biggest, and their technology wasn't the most advanced. They traded peacefully, avoided wars, and mostly stayed out of galactic politics. So how could they be responsible for wiping out powerful civilizations? But not everyone laughed. Some species took the warning seriously. The Varn Collective quietly updated their diplomatic manuals, adding a new rule. Avoid conflict with humans at all costs. The Dral Confederacy canceled a long-standing plan to seize one of Earth's mining colonies. Even the Zelen, known for their pride, paused a planned inspection of Earth's trade routes. Still, others chose to ignore the pattern. The Karkith Empire was one of those. The Karkith were new to power. Their empire had grown fast, taking over several star systems through fear, fire, and force. They believed themselves to be the next galactic superpower. Their leaders were arrogant, their ships were advanced, and their soldiers followed orders without question. To them, Earth looked like an easy target. Humans had rich resources and weak defenses. They didn't have a massive military force or large alliances. Karkith leaders saw a golden opportunity. They attacked without warning. They captured an Earth outpost in the Diran Expanse, a remote sector of space where humans were quietly building a scientific base. The outpost had only 43 people, scientists, engineers, and support staff. Most were taken prisoner. Humanity responded within hours, not with war, but with a simple message. Return our people. Compensate the loss. Apologize. You have 48 hours. Wasn't a threat. It was calm, polite, and clear. There were no insults, no demands for war, no angry broadcasts. The Karkith laughed. They even broadcasted their reply live across 3 star systems. Their emperor, seated on a golden throne, smiled and said, "Humans are weak. They don't scare us. Their people will serve as workers in our minds." The message reached Earth. Hour 48 passed. Then came hour 49. No. Ships appeared from Earth. No soldiers landed on Karkith soil. No weapons were fired. For a short time, the galaxy believed the humans had given up. But then, the Karkith homeworld went dark. No warning, no sound, just complete silence. First, the planetary communications stopped. Then the satellites fell from orbit. Then the planetary shield dropped without being attacked. Every ship in orbit was suddenly disabled. Power systems failed. Lights went out. All weapons refused to fire. Karkith officers panicked. Scientists ran tests, but nothing worked. Rescue fleets were sent in. None returned. Some smaller scout ships flew close to the planet and sent back. Short, chilling video clips before their signals were cut off. Giant cities stood empty. Statues had melted into puddles of metal. All life signs had vanished. There were no bodies, no battles, just absence. It was as if the entire planet had been erased. The Karkith Empire collapsed overnight. Their outer colonies surrendered or fled. Their leaders were gone. Their military dissolved into chaos. Within a week, their empire ceased to exist. And Earth, they said nothing. No victory speeches. No claims of war. No bragging. They simply returned to normal life, quietly collecting their rescued outpost. Personnel from a hidden shuttle that had escaped during the attack, the galaxy stared in horror. This wasn't war. This was something different. Something colder, something calculated. Some began to whisper the word Reapers. Others called humans the silent judges. They didn't strike out of anger. They didn't shout. They simply ended the threat. The Varn Collective immediately updated their files again. Never provoke the humans, they warned. Do not test their limits. The Drawl Confederacy released a formal apology for past border tensions. Even though the humans hadn't said a word about it in decades, the fear was growing. Because now, it wasn't just ancient empires that had vanished after angering Earth. Now, there was proof. A modern empire, powerful and loud, had challenged humanity. It had been wiped out without a trace. Still, even in the face of that horror, some empires began to doubt. Surely this couldn't happen again. Surely the Karkith were just unlucky. Or had problems within their own systems. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe Earth really didn't have that kind of power. These thoughts began to take root in the minds of another rising power. Thrum. They were older than the Karkith, smarter and more cunning. Their spies told them Earth was soft. Their agents reported that humans had no large war fleets in open space, no record of recent invasions, and no use of their so-called superweapons. To the Norgal leaders, Earth looked like a quiet, fragile world, and so they began their plans. They gathered intelligence, identified human colonies, studied Earth's governments. They wanted to take what they wanted, resources, territory even. Human test subjects, they told themselves. The Karkith were foolish. We will be smarter. They didn't know. No one did. But somewhere in a cold, hidden place on Earth, a woman named Area 7, member of a secret organization called the Custodians, had already added a new name to a list. The name was Norgal Imperiumand. That list. That was the reason humanity had never needed big wars, massive fleets, or loud threats. Because when you appeared on the list, it wasn't about punishment, it was about removal. End of Part 2. Part 3. What lies beneath to most of the galaxy? Earth looked calm, peaceful, and maybe even weak. Many alien civilizations thought humanity wasn't dangerous. They saw humans as friendly traders, helpful scientists, and curious explorers. Earth didn't have the biggest warships or the largest armies. There were no superweapons shown on the news. No displays of power. But what the galaxy didn't know was that Earth's greatest strength was hidden, deep beneath the frozen surface of Antarctica, inside a mountain powered by the heat of the planets. Core was a secret underground facility. This place didn't belong to any country. It didn't answer to Earth's governments, armies, or even the United Nations. It belonged to a group known only as the Custodians. The Custodians were not soldiers or politicians. They were a secret group of highly trained humans who had watched over Earth's safety for hundreds of years. They worked in the shadows, protecting humanity from threats that the public never even knew existed. Their mission was simple. If anyone hurts humanity, they must never be allowed to do it again. At the center of their operation was something called the list. The list was not written on paper, wasn't stored in normal computers, was kept in a highly protected digital vault that only a few people could access. It contained the names of every species, empire, or group that had seriously harmed humans, whether through war, slavery, genocide, torture, or betrayal. And once a name appeared on the list, the Custodians began planning how to remove the threat permanently inside. The control room, a woman named Area 7, was watching the screen. She had short black hair, emotionless eyes, and the calm focus of someone who had seen too much. She wasn't born with that name. Area 7 was a title. It's passed down through generations of custodians. She studied the newest entry flashing across the screen. New target. Norgal, Imperium Reason. Genetic experimentation on human prisoners. Status confirmed. Action pending. Aria 7. Didn't scream. She didn't panic. She simply pressed a glowing button. Activate Protocol Umbra. Act. Far away. Across multiple star systems. Things began to happen. In an asteroid field near the edge of Norgal space. Old satellites that had been floating quietly for decades suddenly came online. These satellites weren't normal. They were designed by humans to stay hidden, silent, and undetectable till needed. Elsewhere, moons that had long been thought of as empty rocks suddenly opened. Hidden doors buried under layers of dust slowly unlocked. Inside were stealth ships, dark, silent human vessels loaded with advanced technology not even Earth's own military fully understood. In deep space, listening posts hidden in gas clouds began transmitting data back to Earth. They picked up Norgal communications, fleet locations, and weaknesses. These systems had been placed years ago. It's not in anger, but in preparation because the humans didn't react in the moment, they planned for the future. While all this happened, the galaxy kept moving as normal. Trade ships flew between stars. Diplomats gave speeches. News channels talked about politics. And culture, no one knew that Earth had just made a decision that would change everything. Back on Earth, the custodians were busy. Quietly, without alerting any government, they began hacking into Norgal networks, disabling tracking systems. Near Norgal borders, sending encrypted orders to human agents hiding inside Norgal space. These agents were not soldiers. They were specialists, doctors, engineers, tradespeople who had lived among the Norgal for years, building trust and waiting patiently now. They were active. Some planted false data into Norgal military computers, others caused supply shortages. Some made it look like certain Norgal leaders were betraying each other. Within days, confusion began to spread in the Umpruj. Ships launched but didn't arrive. Supplies vanished. Trust began to break. But still, no one suspected Earth, because the humans hadn't fired a single shot in the Galactic Council chambers. A few species started to notice something strange. Norgal space was becoming ... quiet. Reports from trade ships said communication signals were being jammed. Colonies weren't responding. Some suspected a civil war. Others thought the Norgal were upgrading their technology. But those who remembered the fall of the Karkath Empire began to feel nervous. One ambassador from the Varna, Klekta, whispered to a Draal counterpart, "Have the Norgal done something to Earth?" The Draal ambassador nodded slowly. "If they have, then they've already lost." Inside the custodian's Antarctica vault, Aria 7 reviewed the final phase. The plan wasn't about causing mass destruction. That was too loud, too messy. The custodians had learned long ago that the best way to protect humanity was to end threats. Quietly, the Norgal Imperium was about to be unmade not by bombs, but by fear, confusion, and silence. The humans didn't want to rule the galaxy. They just wanted to make sure no one ever tried to hurt them again. And if that meant removing a few empires to keep the rest in line, so be it. Aria 7 stood in front of a wall covered in tiny lights, each one representing a different empire. Some were green-friendly, some were yellow-watched. Closely, a few were red-marked for destruction. She watched as the Norgal light turned. From yellow to red dot, she whispered softly, "One more debt to settle." The galaxy still believed Earth was weak. They didn't understand that. Earth's strength wasn't in size or numbers. It was in patience, in memory, in a silent promise that if you harmed humanity, you would not get a second chance. And now, the Norgal Imperium was about to learn what every extinct empire before them had learned too late, they thought. Earth was peaceful, but they were wrong. Earth was just waiting. End of Part 3. Part 4. The Fall of the Imperium, the Norgal Imperium. Had no idea they were already falling apart. After capturing and experimenting on human prisoners, They had unknowingly crossed the final line. Earth never responded with loud threats or angry demands. No warships were seen. No declarations of war were made. The Norgal thought humanity was weak. But humans don't respond like other species. They don't get mad. They get quiet. And that's when you should be afraid. At first, things inside the Imperium just felt off. A few ships disappeared in what were called navigation failures. Crews thought it was a glitch in the star maps. Then a transport convoy carrying food and medicine vanished near the edge of Norgal territory. Rescue teams sent after them were also lost. Next, several Norgal military bases experienced power failures. Entire colonies suffered blackouts without warning. Communications went down for hours. It seemed random, but it was spreading. No one blamed Earth. Not yet. The Norgal leaders believed they were simply facing technical problems or bad luck. But it wasn't luck. It was Protocol Umbra, Earth's secret revenge plan, prepared by the custodians, had begun. Behind the scenes, human agents placed inside the Norgal systems had started Phase 2. Military codes were being scrambled, navigation routes were changed slightly enough to send ships into asteroid fields or black holes. Fleet orders were forged to look like they came from Norgal commanders. And worst of all, their central AI network began whispering in code. In English, the Norgal engineers had no idea what was happening. Computers shut down, orders reversed themselves. Defense drones turned against their own patrol ships. It wasn't war in the traditional sense. It was disassemble. The entire Norgal Imperium, its fleets, its government, its systems was being taken apart from the inside, piece by piece. One of the first to notice something was truly wrong was a Norgal general named Vartel. He commanded the 9th Fleet, one of the strongest in their space. During a routine patrol, every ship in the fleet suddenly received a priority order. Return to Norgal Prime. Emergency recall. They turned around. Midway through the journey, half the ships suddenly changed direction without commands. No, their weapons turned on each other. In seconds, the fleet was in chaos. Ships exploded. Others crashed into one another. Some simply vanished from radar. Vartel sent out a distress signal. No. One answered. He tried to contact the homeworld. Silence. The 9th Fleet was gone. Back on the capital planet. Norgal Prime fear had begun to spread. Government buildings were on lockdown. The main military command base had suffered a power outage for the 3rd time in 1 week. Top generals argued in dark rooms, lit only by emergency lights. Rumors filled the streets. People whispered that the humans had cursed them. Others believed. Spies were inside the government, but the truth was far more terrifying. Earth had simply decided the Imperium would not exist anymore. Suddenly, across Norgal-controlled space, new attacks began. But these were unlike anything the Imperium had seen. Small, silent ships appeared out of nowhere. They didn't show up on scanners. They struck once, precisely, then vanished. Entire space stations were taken over from the inside by unknown forces. Cameras recorded doors opening on their own. Guards falling unconscious. Systems shutting down. Cities woke up to find their AI systems wiped. Clean buildings locked. Food dispensers offline. Transport shut down. No bombs. No armies. Just silence and confusion and fear. Then, the final phase began. Every major Norgal commander wore a brain-linked implant. It allowed fast communication and control of their troops. Earth hacked into those implants. Overnight, more than 200 high-ranking officers were fed false orders. They believed they were under attack from inside their own ranks. And so, they turned on each other. Commanders ordered ships to destroy their own bases. Colonels arrested generals for treason. Whole armies were split in half, fighting among themselves while Earth watched quietly. In 1 week, the Norgal military had destroyed itself. The rest of the galaxy was watching. From the outside, it looked like a civil war, like the Imperium had gone insane. But those who had studied Earth, those who remembered the Karkath Empire, knew better. This was the same pattern, the same quiet fall, the same human signature. 1. Droll Ambassador sent a message to the Galactic Council. We are witnessing the end of the Norgal Imperium. Just like the Yulzan, just like the Feralith. They angered Earth, now they vanish. In the Galactic Council chambers, fear spread fast. Species that had once laughed at Earth were now rewriting their entire diplomacy rules. Apologies were sent for old insults. New trade deals were offered with kind words. Statues were built on planets, honoring Earth's peacekeeping efforts. One planet even declared a holiday called Terran Respect Day, because now everyone knew. Humans didn't threaten, they didn't shout, they didn't fight long wars, they just ended you. Back on Earth, Aria 7 stood alone in the Antarctic vault. The screen before her showed the Norgal map, almost every star. The system was now marked in red. The Imperium was collapsing. No outside force could save them. She tapped a command. The screen updated Norgal. Imperium status. Removed. Another red light blinked off. Another threat erased. Another warning to the galaxy. Humanity didn't do this for fun. They didn't enjoy war, but they had learned something long ago. In the vast, cold galaxy, you must protect your own. And if anyone dares to harm your people, must never be allowed to do it again. That was Earth's true strength. Not weapons, not numbers, memory. End of Part 4. Part 5. The lesson carved in stars, the fall of the Norgal. Imperium shocked the entire galaxy. One of the most powerful empires, gone. No war was declared. No human fleets were seen. No grand battles took place. And yet, the Norgal were destroyed. Completely. It was quiet, silent, cold, just like it had been for the Yulzan, the Feralith, and the Karkith before them. By now, the galaxy finally understood. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a warning. After the fall, a strange silence spread. Across the stars, every galactic news channel talked about the same thing. The sudden disappearance of the Norgal Imperium. Governments across many planets held emergency meetings. Some sent ships to investigate. Norgal space, but those ships returned with nothing. Empty planets, broken ships, silent stations. Entire cities left behind with no signs of life. It was like the Norgal had vanished from the galaxy completely. Some thought it was a plague. Others said it was an AI failure. But the ones who had been watching Earth closely, they knew. And they were terrified. The Varn Collective, once known for their pride, sent a formal message to Earth. We thank you for your continued peace and friendship. Please let us know how we may assist in future cooperation. The Droll Confederacy passed a law. No action shall be taken against human interests without a direct vote from all council members. The Zertan League once considered taking a Terran colony by force, instead offered the humans free use of their shipyards. The galaxy had changed, because now they understood. The truth, humanity does not forgive, they remember, and when they act, they make sure their enemies never rise again. On a small asteroid near the edge of human space, a message was found written into the walls of an old alien research station. It read, "They don't conquer, they don't invade, they simply wait. When you forget your fear, they remind you." No one knew who wrote it, but every species believed it. Meanwhile, back on Earth, everything seemed normal. People walked the streets, went to work, played games, and spent time with their families. The media didn't report anything about the Norgal. There were no celebrations, no parades, no official statements. It was as if nothing had happened, because that's how humanity preferred it. Quiet, simple, controlled. But beneath the surface, literally and figuratively, there was movement in the hidden Antarctic vault, deep underground. Area 7 watched the final report scroll across her screen. Norgal Imperium terminated. No response left capable of retaliation. Another entry faded from the list. 1. More danger removed from existence. She sighed softly, then stood. Another custodian entered the room and asked, "Do you think they'll ever learn?" Area 7 looked up at the stars through a reinforced glass window. Some will. Most won't. That's why we're still needed. She didn't sound proud. She didn't sound angry. She sounded tired because removal is never something they enjoyed. But it had to be done to protect Earth, to protect humanity, to protect the future. Across the galaxy, stories began to spread. They were whispered in bars, passed between captains, spoken quietly in war rooms. Did you hear? The Norgal angered the humans. No one's heard from them since. Don't mess with Earth. Just don't. Old empires began rewriting their history books. New empires studied the Terran timeline in schools, not to learn from humans, but to avoid becoming their next mistake. Even species that had never seen a human began building Earth respect centers, offering friendship treaties before ever making contact. One species, the Talari, known for their brutal past, held a public gathering. Their leader stood before millions and spoke. The lesson is clear. Do not provoke Earth. Do not take their silence for weakness. The galaxy is littered with the bones of those who forgot. Some civilizations sent gifts to Earth, not because they had to, but because they wanted to be remembered kindly. One planet sent an enormous gold sculpture of a human holding a book and a sword, with the words carved below, "Knowledge first, but never forget the sword." Humanity never asked for any of it. They didn't want to rule. They didn't want to conquer. They just wanted peace. But peace, they'd learned, must be protected. And so, the custodians remained in the shadows, watching, preparing, remembering. Didn't strike often, but when they did, history changed. A young alien scholar once asked her teacher, "Why are humans so dangerous?" The teacher replied, "Because they have a gift no other species has. They forgive, but they never forget. And when they decide the galaxy would be better off without you, you don't even see it coming, in the cold of space, among dead systems and silent ruins. Ancient machines still hum with power human-made tools left behind after justice was done. No markers, no flags. Just a message buried deep inside the systems for anyone who dares look. Every extinct empire had one thing in common: they pissed off humanity." End of part 5.